trees remember everything. Every footstep, every breath, every scream that echoes through their ancient branches. I thought I was studying them, but they were studying me. Welcome to the Obscuralore Vault, where the darkest secrets hide in plain sight. I'm your host, and today's nightmare is titled, I Monitor the Forests of Denali. Something in the trees shouldn't exist. What you're about to hear is based on classified research files that were never meant to see daylight. The government buried this story for good reason. Some discoveries are too dangerous for the public to know. My name is Dr. James Whitmore, and for the past 6 years, I've been monitoring the pristine wilderness of Denali National Park. What started as routine environmental research became something far more terrifying than any horror movie could imagine. It began on September 3, 2023. I was conducting my weekly survey of the northern quadrant, checking sensor arrays that monitored everything from soil temperature to wildlife movement patterns. The work was methodical, peaceful even. These forests had been my sanctuary, a place where logic and science provided comfort against an increasingly chaotic outside world. But that morning, something was different. The first anomaly appeared on my motion detection grid around 6:47 a.m. Sensor cluster Delta 7 registered movement, something large moving between the trees in a pattern that defied explanation. Not the random wandering of wildlife, but deliberate, calculated steps that formed geometric shapes across the forest floor. I dismissed it initially. Equipment malfunctions were common in such remote locations. Extreme weather, electromagnetic interference from solar activity, even curious animals could trigger false readings. But when I reviewed the data later that evening, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Whatever had moved through that section of forest had traced a perfect spiral, covering nearly 3 square miles. The timestamps showed it had completed this massive geometric pattern in less than 12 minutes. Nothing in nature moves that fast over such terrain while maintaining mathematical precision. The next morning, I hiked to the Delta 7 sector to investigate personally. The 2-hour trek through dense wilderness felt different this time. Usually these forests buzzed with life, birds calling to each other, small mammals rustling through underbrush, the constant whisper of wind through countless leaves. That day, the forest was silent. Not just quiet, completely, unnaturally silent. As if every living thing had suddenly vanished or was holding its breath in terror. When I reached the coordinates where the movement had been detected, I found the trees themselves had changed. Not damaged or diseased, but altered in ways that made my scientific mind struggle for explanations. The bark patterns on dozens of ancient spruces had shifted overnight, forming interconnected spirals that matched the movement pattern recorded by my sensors. Trees don't change their bark patterns, not in hours, not ever. I documented everything with photographs and detailed measurements, but my equipment began malfunctioning the moment I entered that area. Cameras produced images with strange distortions, shadows that bent in impossible directions, reflections that showed different scenes than what I was actually photographing. My GPS unit started giving contradictory readings, showing my location as simultaneously being in Alaska and coordinates that didn't exist on any map. Even my digital voice recorder captured sounds I hadn't heard while I was there, distant whispers in languages that predated human civilization, rhythmic tapping that seemed to come from beneath the earth itself. That night, back at my research station, I tried to make sense of what I'd experienced. I cross-referenced historical records, geological surveys, even indigenous folklore about the region. What I discovered made my blood run cold. The area where I detected the anomalous movement was marked on old territorial maps as the Watching Grove, a place where native tribes had forbidden their children to venture. According to translated oral histories, something dwelled there that was older than the mountains, patient as stone, hungry as winter. The historical accounts described a presence that could manipulate the natural environment, bending reality to its will. Trees that moved when no one was looking, shadows that existed independent of any object casting them, and sounds that spoke directly to the primitive fear centers of the human brain. But these were just stories, folklore meant to keep people away from dangerous terrain. At least that's what I told myself. The second incident occurred 5 days later. This time, multiple sensor arrays detected simultaneous movement across a 15-mile radius around my research station. Not random animal migration, but coordinated activity that suggested intelligence and purpose. I watched the real-time data stream in horror as something vast moved through the forest in patterns that formed symbols visible only from above. Ancient symbols that appeared in cultures separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time. The same symbols that archaeologists had found carved into stone monuments worldwide, always associated with sites where unexplained disappearances had occurred throughout history. My radio equipment picked up transmissions that shouldn't have been possible. Voices speaking in whispers, discussing my research, my daily routines, my fears. They knew I was listening. They wanted me to know they were watching. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the forest calling to me. Not with words, but with feelings, emotions that weren't my own flooding my consciousness. Ancient hunger, patient malevolence, and something else. Curiosity about the modern human who had stumbled into their domain. During the day, I continued my official research, maintaining the pretense that everything was normal. But at night, I began my real investigation. Using infrared cameras and motion sensors, I documented activity that violated every law of physics I understood. Trees that relocated themselves between dusk and dawn, rearranging the forest layout while I slept. Shadows that moved independently, clustering around my research station like predators circling prey. And always, the sound of something massive moving just beyond the range of my detection equipment. On October 15th, exactly 6 weeks after the first anomaly, I made a discovery that changed everything. While reviewing thermal imaging data, I noticed a pattern in the underground temperature readings. Beneath the forest floor, something enormous was generating heat in a network that stretched for miles in every direction. Not geological activity. The heat signatures were too regular, too purposeful. Something was living under the forest. Something vast and ancient that had been there long before humans ever set foot in Alaska. I had to know what it was. Against every instinct screaming for me to evacuate immediately, I organized a night expedition to the center of the thermal anomaly. Using ground-penetrating radar, I located what appeared to be a massive hollow space about 30 feet below the surface. The entrance was hidden beneath a cluster of trees that I swear hadn't been there the week before. A natural opening in the earth, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through, leading down into absolute darkness. My equipment detected air movement from below. Whatever was down there was breathing. I descended into that hole with nothing but a headlamp, a digital camera, and the foolish conviction that scientific knowledge could protect me from whatever waited in the depths. The tunnel led to a cavern system that predated the last ice age. The walls were covered in the same spiral patterns I'd seen on the tree bark, but these were carved into solid rock. Some appeared naturally formed, others showed clear signs of intelligent design. At the center of the largest chamber I found it, the thing that had been watching me, studying me, preparing for this meeting. It was unlike anything in the fossil record, unlike anything that should exist on Earth, a fusion of plant and animal, of organic matter and something else entirely. Massive root systems that pulsed with their own heartbeat, connected to neural networks that stretched back to the surface, linking every tree in the forest into a single vast consciousness. It had been there for millennia, possibly longer. Watching human civilization develop, learning our patterns, our weaknesses, our fears. The forest itself was just an extension of its consciousness, a vast sensory network that monitored everything within hundreds of square miles. And it had been waiting for someone like me, someone with the knowledge and technology, to help it expand beyond its current boundaries. The creature communicated not through sound, but through direct neural interface. Images, emotions, and concepts flooded my mind faster than I could process them. I saw its origins, its purpose, its plans for the future of human civilization. It was a scout, one of many sent to different locations around the globe thousands of years ago. Its mission was to study local ecosystems and prepare them for something much larger that was coming. The thermal anomalies, the geometric patterns, the manipulation of the forest. These were preparation activities. It was terraforming the environment, making it suitable for its creators to inhabit. And now that it had learned everything it needed to know about modern human technology and behavior patterns, the next phase could begin. I tried to run, but the creature had been inside my mind for weeks, ever since that first day when I'd entered its domain. It knew my thoughts before I could form them, predicted my actions before I could take them. Escape was impossible. It had allowed me to discover it, had guided my research to this moment. I was never investigating it. It was studying me. The creature offered me a choice: become its willing ally in the coming transformation, or serve as an unwilling test subject to help it understand human psychology and physiology. I chose cooperation, telling myself it was the only way to survive long enough to warn others about what was coming. That was 8 months ago. Since then, I've continued my official research while secretly helping the creature prepare for the next phase of its mission. The thermal network has expanded to cover over 1,000 square miles. Similar anomalies have been reported at research stations in Siberia, the Amazon, and the Canadian Rockies. The creature's creators are coming, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop them. My official reports describe normal environmental conditions and healthy ecosystem development. But my real research, the classified files I've been compiling, tell a different story. They document the systematic preparation of Earth for alien colonization, hidden beneath our most pristine and protected wilderness areas. The government knows. Satellite imagery has detected the thermal anomalies, but they've chosen to classify the information rather than risk public panic. They believe they can control or negotiate with the entities when they arrive. They're wrong. I've seen the creature's memories of what happened to other worlds that resisted the colonization process. Entire civilizations reduced to biological resources, their consciousness absorbed into the collective network, while their physical forms were repurposed for alien needs. Earth's fate was decided long before our species developed the ability to detect the preparation activities. We're not facing an invasion. We're witnessing the final stages of a colonization process that began before recorded human history. The forests remember everything, including the future that's been planned for us. Sometimes, late at night in my research station, I can feel the creature testing the neural link it's established with my brain. It's learning human language, human emotions, human fears. When its creators arrive, they'll understand exactly how to break our resistance before we even realize we're under attack. I'm still here, still filing my reports, still pretending to conduct legitimate environmental research, but I'm no longer Dr. James Whitmore, forest researcher. I'm patient zero in humanity's first contact with an intelligence that views our entire species as nothing more than a biological resource to be harvested. The trees are watching you right now, wherever you are. Through their root networks, through their connection to similar entities around the globe, they're monitoring human activity and reporting back to something vast and patient and hungry. Every forest you've ever walked through, every tree you've ever sat beneath, every natural space where you felt that primitive unease of being watched, you were right to be afraid. They've been studying us all along, and now they're ready to harvest what they've cultivated. If you're listening to this, if you've made it this far, you need to understand that sharing this information puts you at risk. The creature doesn't just monitor the forest. It has access to electronic communication networks, internet traffic, cellular data. It knows you've heard this story. It knows you're thinking about it right now. And somewhere, in a forest you may never visit, ancient intelligence is updating its files on human response patterns to classified information. Your reaction to this story, your decision to believe or dismiss it, your choice to share it or keep it secret, all of this data is being collected and analyzed by something that's been preparing for this moment longer than our species has existed. The colonization of Earth didn't begin with UFO sightings or government cover-ups. It began in the forests, in the spaces between trees where shadows move independently, and ancient intelligence watches everything with patient, hungry eyes. Welcome to the harvest. The trees remember everything, including your name. The research files I've described tonight remain classified, but the thermal anomalies continue to expand, Government satellites detect new sites monthly, always in protected wilderness areas where public access is limited, and official explanations can be carefully controlled. If this story has left you questioning what might be lurking in the forests near your home, if you're now listening more carefully to the sounds outside your window, then you understand why some knowledge is too dangerous to share. But here at the Obscuralore Vault, we believe the truth deserves to light, no matter how terrifying it might be. If you want to explore more classified encounters with the unknown, hit that subscribe button and join our community of truth seekers. Like this video if it's made you question what's really hiding in the wilderness around us, and share it with someone brave enough to handle the reality of what's coming. Because in the forests of Denali, something that shouldn't exist is preparing for the day when it no longer needs to hide. Sweet dreams, and remember, the trees are always listening.